I wasn't lying in the last video when I said I thought I was done for NemeSeptember, but opportunities arose, and now we are doing this to close out NemeSeptember, maybe a little after the month is actually done. But it also kind of ties into spooky season because Black Cat. We are looking at Beast Wars' second Black Lio Convoy. This is, I believe, the first instance historically of a evil black repaint version of Optimus Prime, like in media. I don't know about toys, but I think that's the story behind this guy. It's a first in some regard. But yeah, I had been wanting to get the Beast Wars Neo figure, in particular this version, for a fair bit of time, and I'd never bring myself to pay the $150, $200, $300 plus prices that I was seeing it go for. And yeah, clearly that's changed. Specifically, I managed to get this for a really good price on eBay. I bid on an auction. Nobody else bid on it, so I managed to get the, get in on like the ground floor minimum bid. And this figure is very cool with some things that bug me. But first off, I do think this is interesting, and this is something I didn't clock when I was looking at the legacy version of Nemesis. What was it? Nemesis Lio Prime? Or whatever they called that one. So, no familiarity with the subject matter, as is usually the case. But with the legacy version, I didn't realize how it's basically an inverse color scheme to the original toy. Like, if we just have them side by side, like, clearly you've still got the turquoise, and I'll talk about this a little bit more later, but I custom painted the eyes on this guy into red because I feel like that looks way better. And I still think it's silly that they gave the pupilless kind of monstrous eyes to the good guy figure and gave the sad puppy dog eyes to the bad guy one, but whatever. But aside from the claws and the eyes, they're inverse, where you've got the light gray for the mane and the tail on the original and black for everything else. But here, the mane and the tail are black and everything else is the lighter gray. They're not exactly the same tone, though they are really close as I'm looking at them side by side. But I just think that's interesting and definitely not something I noticed the first time around when I was looking at this guy, how they're basically this is kind of like the negative of this, which is, I don't know, just interesting. But anyway, we're here to talk about this guy. And yeah, this guy does a couple of things that I think are kind of but there's a lot of cool stuff to this. For one, it's from the era of toys being a bit more gimmicky, so he's got a lot of gimmicks, which a lot of them are actually kind of interesting. The transformation on this guy is similar. Again, this is, I haven't experienced this mold before. This was my first experience with any kind of Lio Convoy or Lio Prime in terms of Beast Wars 2nd or Beast Wars Neo or whatever. The Titans Return to Car Legends version doesn't count. But this, the way this transforms, there are some things that this is obviously taking inspiration from this guy for, but there are other things. I really appreciate how both of these toys do very different things with the robot torso transformation. I think that's really cool. And this guy, he's showing his age. He's a little creaky, but still a really neat toy. Anyway, let's just get right into it. So I think it is cool, the color scheme here. I actually, looking at them both side by side as we were before, I think I actually prefer this with the primarily most of the body being black fur and then the mane and the tail being silver rather than the other way around. The molding is really nice. You can actually see there's a lot of really nice molded texture for fur all over this thing. I do wish that the tail went the other way around. I wish the curve went up. And if I really wanted to, I could probably undo this screw and flip it around. But the problem is, if I flip it around, like you can kind of see if you look at the tail here, the tip of the lion tail goes along here. So if this were flipped upside down, it would look like there's this big thing of fur going above the tail, which wouldn't really make sense. But I do wish this curve went the other way, primarily for robot mode, but again, we'll get to that. But like the texturing is really nice. I like how the quality of the fur texture is different between the body and the mane. Like they're much finer and more numerous furs, or at least more, like a finer fur texture for the body. And then the mane, it looks much, much longer, much thicker hairs or fur. Articulation is kind of meh. Also, because this is an older toy, like these are a little bit wiggly. I kind of have to, like if I want to pose this guy, I can't just move the arms and call it a day. I can't just straighten him out, because if I straighten him out and let go, he's going to lean down. I have to actually push them a little bit past where I want them to be, and then let that looseness kind of settle in, which it's something I can work with, but it's just something that kind of bugged me. I also had to tighten up a few things on this guy. But yeah, molding is good. Colors are good. The articulation is kind of there, but this guy has a lot of gimmicks, which I really like. Before we do that, just want to say the face looks nice. I like the face on this better. Like I understand why people were complaining before, but like seeing them together, I do think the original face, where it's more like stretched out, looks better than the one where it's kind of pointed down. It almost looks like it's melting by comparison. It may not be accurate, but this is not an accurate line to begin with. Like those eyes are not lion eyes. Turquoise for the eyes is also an interesting choice, and I think it's kind of funny that they even gave him a little like cat's eye makeup on the edges. He's got the silver nose, and another thing that I didn't realize at first, that complaint of the ears being unpainted on the mane for the legacy figures. I get that complaint, but like the original figures did it too. His ears are right there, but they're not painted in black, so it is what it is. I mean, I'm not saying it wouldn't be nice. It would absolutely be nice if these were painted black so you could actually tell they were ears, just like it'd be nice if they painted the other ears in like that gray, but still, it's not terrible. And also the head can do this if you want. I don't really understand why this doesn't more solidly sit. I mean, I guess because of the gimmick, but you can kind of give it a little tilt, like he's being a little curious boy. I don't know. But first gimmick that this guy does that I think is pretty cool. There's this little button up here. You push the button and rawr. It's very, very simple. It just moves the top and bottom jaws up. But inside, you've got these really nice silver fangs and even the bright red tongue, which is really cool. I do think it would have been nice if they painted the lower teeth in silver so that it matched. But I think having the top teeth and fangs in silver, it stands out enough, especially with that red tongue, that you don't really notice the lack of paint on the lower teeth. But that's neat. The only thing that kind of bums me out about this gimmick is there's no way to pose him with the mouth open, so you can't lock it in for display or photos or something like that, which is kind of unfortunate, but he also has the artillery lion mode, which is what I call it. I don't know if it's official, but way to do that is gotta move this flap out of the way, and there are these little switches inside here that are a little bit difficult to hit, but if you can get them and flip them forward, I always forget where they're located, then that happens. This very kinetic flap flips forward. I'm going to try and I'll zoom out so it actually shows up on camera. So I'm going to find that switch and pull it forward, and it snaps forward. And now he's got a couple of cannons, but then he can get a couple more cannons. There is, underneath this piece here, there's this switch, which you can just press like this. But I find what you can actually do is you can just push down here, and this will actually push the switch. When you push that switch, those cannons pop out. which is very neat. And this is something that the Legacy figure does as well, though it's not spring-loaded. And also the Legacy figure doesn't have extra guns on the inside of the main by default. But you can do it with the Legacy figure, which is neat. It will never not be silly, but it is neat. So with this, we can actually pull out the missiles. I have not done this yet. I was keeping the missiles. They did show up with the figure. They're in their bag still, unused. I didn't really have a reason for them because they don't really store, I don't think. But we'll load them up so we can see what that looks like. So these just lock into their various launchers. And over here, over here, over here. There we go. So those click in and just have 2 extra. And you can push the little button to fire them. Come on. There we go. And oh, that one didn't really fire. There we go. So you can fire off his missiles. And I'm reasonably sure, let me double check, but I am reasonably sure that you cannot. Oh, okay. For some reason, I was sure you couldn't actually keep the missiles plugged in and put everything back, but apparently you can. So if you want to have him loaded up with missiles, you can do that. I'm just gonna not. Those will come into play again when we get back to robot mode. Let me get rid of these missiles real quick. That was not quick, but through the power of editing, it will appear to have been quick. Okay, so that's it for the missile launching gimmicks, but then you also have the claw gimmicks, where each of the front paws has these little blades, and all you have to do is get a finger back here to bump this little nub out of place, and it'll spring forward, and you can have him doing big cat claw attacks. And this is the kind of thing where I feel like being able to have this stuck in the open position would be nice, because then you could have it look like he's, going "arr," but oh well. But that's also a neat gimmick. And then finally, you can do the most ridiculous thing. We're going to flare out all of the lion mane bits, including this one. You got to do this one because this is the one that kind of locks everything into place. And then there is this big button on top, not the little one that makes these flip out, but this big one. And if you push that, that is so completely ridiculous, and I am absolutely here for it. So yeah, that is it for all the gimmicks that this guy has. It's a neat lion mode and a neat figure, but I really also think the transformation is neat, so we're just gonna keep charging ahead so we can get to the good stuff, which in my mind is the transformation and the robot mode. So size-wise, he is pretty darn big. I want to say this is probably close-ish to modern leader size, though of course denser, because it's an old school figure. This is from what, the 90s? Very early 2000s? I don't remember when Beast Wars 2nd happened, but it's been at least going on 20 years, if not much longer. And whoops. Not ready for the ultimate in size comparisons yet. First, we've got to bring back the Legacy figure, so you can see how the classic one stacks up compared to the modern Voyager. And again, like I said, I think the color scheme and the overall look of the lion here is better than the Legacy one, but there are definitely things that the Legacy figure does better in my mind. And because we're looking at East-themed Nemesis Primes, we of course have to bring in Universe Nemesis Prime. And this guy is, go this way. This guy is kind of about the same size, though at the same time not. This is definitely denser and heavier than this. No mistaking that. I picked both of them up, and it's like, this feels twice as heavy as this. But if you know this figure, you know that there's a lot going on with this guy too. So I think that kind of stands to reason. And also, of course, we got to do the most important size comparison of them all, which I talked about briefly a second ago. Here he is with the duck tank. All right, let's turn this into a humanoid robot. But before we do that, if you like this video, channel support, blah, 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 blah. I've got a Ko-fi and a Patreon, links to both at the end of the video as well as down in the description. Now let's transform this guy. So to start, let's start with the lion head. So I'm going to push the little button just to make these pop up, just to get stuff kind of out of the way. Pull these flaps out also to get them out of the way. Now, the arms peg in a couple of places inside of the main. There's this little strut here that pegs in here, but there's also a little peg hole on the inside of the fist that pegs in to the side here as well. So I'm going to wiggle this out, and there you can kind of see the peg that is pegged into the fist. As we bring this down, there you can see there's the peg that goes into the fist. There's the peg hole that this strut pegs into. So this comes out. The arm kind of unfolds, fist comes down, lion foot kind of angles back and tucks against the back of the arm. And we'll just leave it like that for now. Same deal here. Unpeg, bring it out. Swing this around, straighten out the arm, and straighten out the fist. There we go. Okay. Also, the legs. Probably should have done the legs first, but whatever. Going to take this flap, bring that up, take the butt, bring that up. That'll give us the room to bring the legs down and straighten them out. And this is very much like the Legacy figure, because the Legacy figure took this from the original figure. Want to rotate the thighs 180 degrees, then rotate the feet 180 degrees. And then dig out the heels, which in this figure at least, it's pretty easy to just push the foot forward, and that brings the heels out, and then you can just bring the heels back the rest of the way. So there is the lower body. Now for the upper body, this is the really interesting stuff. So you want to bring this obvious chest piece all the way down. Now, with this all kind of up, you want to take this entire assembly, and this will come up like this. You can rotate this 180 degrees so that it now lines up more with the chest, and then bring it up a little further, because now we want to take this piece, flip that down, and then flip this to bring the head up. And I think that's really interesting how the head flips up sideways. And close this back up. And then you want to bring this down, but you don't want to bring it all the way down. Basically, we have to get these arm struts set up. So you want to take these struts, and they basically will angle and peg into, there's this peg right here that this strut pegs into. So it pegs into the inside of the chest. And then the chest, I'm going to keep the arms forward. With that all pegged together, now the chest will swing back, and these struts that the arms are connected to will go under these grooves here and here on the upper part of the lion. So these come up and they line up with those grooves. And you can bring the arms back down so that they're not in the way anymore. And now we want to unclick this. You can kind of see when we move this back out of the way, there's like a slider right down here. You want to slide the entire lion top half down, and it actually clicks down, and then it's kind of loosely sliding. Once it's loosely slid, you want to keep pushing, and it'll click further down. I find it's best to push here, kind of pinch here, but like keep pushing and it'll click one more time. And once it clicks that, going down, now this is all locked together. That torso is locked, and that's really cool. I like how, it's a little bit tenuous, but I do think it's cool how they got around some of the engineering limitations of the time, and it's a really interesting way to bring the chest together. Granted, the Legacy figure is way better at hiding the robot mode chest in Lion mode, but still, that's pretty cool. Anyway, this can come down. This kind of, getting this situated is a little weird. I've seen people do it like this. What I tend to do is bring this, according it back as far as I can, and then start to raise this up until the edge of this gets just shy of the head so that you still have space for rotation, and I kind of leave the shoulder section up like that. But you can kind of do what you want with it. And that comes down, and these bits on either side can close back up, and that's it. There we've got the robot mode. If you really wanted to, you could bring these back down, but I don't like doing that because it obscures the face a lot. So just gonna leave those out. And yeah, there we go. There is Black Lio Convoy in robot mode. And for everything that happens on this figure, it's surprisingly light on kibble. You've got the lion forelegs hanging off the arms, and you've got the tail and the lion head, but this stuff is part of the design. That's kind of accurate. So that doesn't really, I don't think that counts as kibble. For me, it's just, and this doesn't even count as kibble because that's really there, but this is kind of egregious, but this looks really cool. The proportions are a little weird. The upper body, in particular, the chest is kind of unnecessarily puffed out compared to the legs, and the arms are a little scrawny, but this is a very cool figure, and it looks great in these colors. I love how you got a little bit of this mechanical gray and the metallic turquoise. You could kind of see this in Lion mode because it was the inside of the legs, but it is so much more in the forefront in robot mode now. There's the pelvis section, which I believe was, let's see, yeah, this was facing down, so this was visible in Lion mode if you look at it from the bottom. It got a little bit extra visibility with the shoulders, the head, obviously, the fists. But he wears the Lion mode pretty well, and I always did think that this idea is more interesting than what a lot of beast formers do, where yes, it's the animals standing up, but I think here the legs do a decent amount to reshape. The Legacy figure is better in that regard, but the legs do a decent amount to reshape, but then the forelegs for the animal are not the arms for the robot, which I think is really cool. And again, I think that torso transformation is really, really sweet. And just the black with lighter kind of gunmetal-y silver accents and these light kind of metallic-y turquoise bits are really cool. Then for some reason, the dark metallic blue right dead center on the pelvis, I don't really get that. That's the only place that color really appears, but whatever. But yeah, he looks pretty darn cool. You've got the metallic chromy maximal symbol on the chest, and you can open up the door to reveal the maximal rub sign and the, I guess, matrix thing, which is all nicely sculpted and painted. I guess you get a little bit of it's not the same shade of blue, but it's similar. So there's that. One of the things with this toy when I got it was one of the stipulations was that door is really floppy. I've since strengthened it a little bit. It's still, as you can see, okay, now it's fine. It's loosened up a bit since I tightened it, but this used to be I would go like this and it would just be so it's better than it was. Another thing is the I kind of feel I don't know if I've got the arm strut on this side lined up correctly or not. I feel like it's right, but it's kind of going out like this, whereas this one goes more straight back. But I kind of don't know that that's wrong because it's so hard to tell with Beast Wars stuff. And yeah, I think if I try to line it up, then it's like the arm is bumping into that flap. So I think I had it right the first time. But anyway, this is a nifty design, as I said, and pretty much all the gimmicks are accessible. Well, pretty much nothing. All of the gimmicks are accessible in this mode, in addition to the, I guess you could call it a matrix chamber. So yeah, pretty neat. The head is very Optimus Prime-y. I do like the two-layered antenna things, whatever they are, that they did here, and I like how you've got the kind of main ones are in black like the rest of the helmet, but then the other ones are in that kind of grayish silver. And of course, faceplate and head crest, light blue eyes. Light blue eyes is a little bit like, I don't know, maybe they should have been red, but I didn't do the initial design. Also, this was, one of the first, if not the first instance of a Black Prime repaint as bad guys, so I think it's fine that they didn't have the red eyes thing kind of locked in at that point. But sculpting is nice. It's a little bit simplistic, I guess, but I don't see that as a bad thing. Just, it's from many, many years ago. But it does look good, and it does, again, get the Prime design across. Articulation-wise, is actually pretty good articulation on this guy. The head can swivel all the way around. The shoulder pieces do get in the way, but with the shoulder pieces as out of the way as they can be, you get a ball jointed shoulder, so you can go forward and backward, and eventually it bumps into stuff and gets restricted. But on this one, at least, you can kind of go out a bit if you want to do that. You do get over 90 degrees of elbow bend. Let me get this out of the way so you can see. You get over 90 degrees of elbow bend. And there's a ball joint in the bicep, which allows the arm to bend in. Isn't necessary for transformation, I don't think, but you can do it. And you also get a bicep rotation, but it's very it's very stiff. Partially because I tightened it, but it was kind of stiff before. But it's stiff rotating, but it was too loose doing this. So I tried to tighten it, and now that I think it's kind of balanced it out, but I kind of have to grab the bicep in order to rotate it. But you get that rotation. As I said, you get the elbow, and the fist can do that if you want, and that's it. This is... We'll get to that. I'm going to come back to that. So you also get a waist rotation, and the waist rotation on this is very stiff, but can go around. Okay, that seems to have loosened it up, going around a bit, so that's good. Yeah, you get waist rotation. The legs can go forward a couple of clicks, so that far, and go back one click, so that far, and go out to almost 90. You get thigh rotation just above the knee, and then you actually get double knees. So if you bend the upper joint, you get a little under 90, and then we bring the lower joint, you get a lot more. Or you can do the lower joint first, and then the upper joint, so you can get really nice knee bend. I prefer to use the lower joint for the line mode and the upper joint for the robot mode. I don't know if that's accurate. I just think it works to have the knee pad kind of attached to the calf section or shin section. You get ankle rotation for transformation, and then you can move the foot and heel up and down independently. He does not have tilt, which is unfortunate. Doesn't have an A stance either, which is more unfortunate in my mind, but it is what it is. He's stable. You just have to, angle the feet and heels so that he's not toppling over, but he's reasonably stable despite the age and the limitations in the feet. So it just kind of makes it look like he's doesn't really have his feet on the ground fully, but it's fine. The base is wide enough, it's okay. Now, my articulation gripe with this guy is this arm, because as you can see, this arm is obscenely hindered. It can still go forward and back, for the most part anyway. You're not going to be able to go straight up, which I think is fine. You still get the bicep rotation, which is, again, really stiff, but you get it. You get the over 90 degrees of elbow bend. But the problem is you basically have no outward motion because of all this junk in the way. And there's no way to fix that. I've tried, and the best I can come up with is if you push, it's just weirdly difficult to show up. This little switch right here is what you press forward to unlatch the missile launcher flap, and it gets stuck because of all the stuff up there, but that's how you can flip that out. And with that flipped out, you do get a little bit more articulation, like range of articulation outward, because this is not banging onto the inside here, but like that's not great. And that is my core problem with this guy, is that his right arm is not useless, but very close to being useless. That really sucks. I just wish that there was some way for this to get out of the way more. Like if it slid out or tilted up or something. I'm sure it has something to do with the gimmicks, why it can't do that. But it just disappoints me that this arm is so hindered. But that's, 'twas the era. Now, for the gimmicks, you do still have access to all the same gimmicks. If you really wanted to, you could make the lion do this, which is kind of disturbing when you think about it in robot mode. These bits can tuck away, and all the bits for the main can flare out, and you can push the same button so that he does the pinwheel attack. And I would like this for the robot mode, if not for the fact that these bits completely block the eyes. So like if he's using this as an attack and you turn his head, like he can't see anything because of this stuff in the way. You can kind of, like you can push the buttons so they're up like this, which kind of helps, but these will then get in the way of this mechanism, so you can't actually use the gimmick when it's like this, and that's just, it just seems a little bit not fully thought out. But it's there, and of course you still have those bits on the side. You can swing the lion feet forward and flip out the claws. And as you saw with this arm, but it can show it on this arm too, you pull the other switch and you flip the missile launcher forward. So you got all those gimmicks retained, and then one extra thing that's not really a gimmick, but it's a thing that you can do, is these launchers on the inside of the main, the upper part of the main, are actually pegged in. So you can unpeg them, and then that it doesn't block the face as much when these aren't in, but it still blocks the face. So yeah, that still kind of bumps me out. But you can unpeg them, and then you can put them in his hands and give him guns. Now, what I prefer to do is I put one into, like, I put both into the same hand and just have them going into like top and bottom, so that way it looks more like a double barrel blaster thing. And also I'll flip out, there we go. It just gets stuck. Flip out the main piece and then use this arm for melee. And that's kind of how I'll have him ready for fighting. But we can bring back the missiles, and these can peg into their, or click into their usual spots. So put that in there, that in there, and there. And I guess if you really wanted to, you can also click that one in there. So there he goes. He's all loaded up, and you still have 2 extra missiles. I don't know what to do with these. They seem unnecessary. I guess maybe he can hold them? Yeah, he can hold them. I don't know. These are definitely going back in that little baggie and then into my closet with the parts box once I'm done with this video, but it's a thing you can do. And of course, you can also fire off all of these missiles. Just fire, boom, boom. And then this one, we're going to have to whip it out first. Whoa, okay, flipping it out made it fire. Glad I was aiming at the backdrop for that. Yeah, it's a cool figure that is limited due to the age. Just, the era it was designed in, rather, not the age specifically. It's more than anything, it's this arm. But if you mess around with the gimmick stuff a little bit, you can kind of give yourself just a tiny bit more articulation range out of that arm, which is good. This definitely is still kind of loose. I feel like something's going on here. I need to figure out how to properly shore this up, but whatever. So yeah, definitely a little bit lacking in some places, but still really cool and big and beefy and feels really nice and looks extremely cool, even with the slightly wonky proportions and slightly awkward articulation. This right here is what I was talking about with the tail, though. How with this going down, the curve going down like that, it bumps into the arm really quickly. If this was flipped around, it would give you a little bit more leeway to bring this down and not bump into the arm. So that's something I've been kind of curious to try, but I don't know. I don't know if I feel like disassembling the shoulder pad thing just for something like that, but we'll see how it goes. So there we go. There is Black Lio Convoy. And let's start bringing in our size comparisons, because when he gets bipedal, he gets pretty tall. So there is Dinobot and Over Prime and Burnout Samus. So yeah, this is not leader size. This is taller than modern leader by a good amount, but kind of vaguely in that ballpark. Way taller than a Voyager and a Deluxe, obviously, but also way older, because duh. We all knew this, and I've said it many times. Actually, while I'm thinking about it, let me just double check blast effect compatibility. Can you wedge this? No, you can wedge the blast effect into the launcher. It's not designed for it. It's more of a cross shape, but you can wedge it in there. I don't think it's going to work on these, though, because these guys are narrower. Yeah, you can't wedge it in here. Oh well. And you can't hold it because the fist holes are actually bigger than 5 millimeters, it looks like. So, oh well. After that, bring in Legacy figure and Legacy Lio Prime, Legacy Nemesis Lio Prime, whatever, is, again, noticeably smaller by a lot. And the color comparisons I don't think are necessarily fair in this case, because I do have the Reaper label set on this guy, which I will absolutely defend this figure. This figure is extremely cool and looks amazing with Reaper labels. But, that's for... that's not what we're talking about. But yeah, this is, ignoring the colors, the proportions, I think, are better on this guy. The articulation's a lot better, not just because it's a more modern toy, so the articulation, there's a little bit more to it, like ankle tilts and stuff like that, but the shoulder bits are designed to more easily get out of the way for the sake of articulation, even on this side. So, you can more easily go out, you can kind of slide this section forward and backward and swing it around to further get it out of the way. So it's way, way better. This even individually moves. Come on. I don't expect this one to do this per se, but the articulation is undeniably leagues better on Legacy. But again, I feel like it's the same character, but slightly different aesthetics. Proportions way different, and again, Reaper labels make a big difference, because without the Reaper labels, this guy's deco is pretty basic. But here also you can see the whole inverse color scheme, where you've got the, what is black here is gray here, and what's black here is gray here. So it's an interesting mix-up, and I don't care about having multiple versions of the same character regardless, but I feel like it's different enough that even if I did, I wouldn't mind having these two together. And since we looked at him before, we're going to bring back Universe Nemesis Prime, of course, because this guy is also extremely cool. And has better articulation than this guy, but again, I think this is I'm pretty sure this is a newer figure. Even like the base Big Convoy mold, I'm pretty sure was newer than this. Because I think Big Convoy came after Lio Convoy. I could be wrong. But it is kind of interesting how he is a lot shorter than him, but he still weighs a ton more and is a lot bulkier. And I kind of think he still looks cooler, but that's just me. Not saying he for sure is the cooler of the two, just think he looks cooler. And of course, we've got to do the most vital of size comparisons. Here he is with the duck tank. And that does it for Beast Wars 2nd Black Lio Convoy. I wasn't entirely sure if I would get this figure or how long it would take me, but I got him and I'm glad I did, because he is definitely more than just this figure, but less articulation. He's big and chunky and beefy, is fun to mess around with. Pardon me while I adjust Legacy figure a little bit. But yeah, big, clunky, not clunky, big and chunky, fun to mess around with. Maybe a little clunky in terms of the articulation, particularly around the right arm. Ankle tilts I could take or leave with a figure this age, but a sculpted A stance would have been nice. Also, his hips do the thing where he's either stock straight or a little too far out. It would have been nice if the legs could come out that far, and you can kind of cheat the ratchet, but it wouldn't take much to bump it into a different position. But like that is a much more natural stance to me. But then, yeah, that's how the ratchets want to go. And again, the articulation on this arm is kind of, and some of the joints are a little bit loose, but this has been, 20 to 30-year-old toy, so it's fine. But yeah, very cool figure. I, again, think that transformation on the torso is really interesting. It's it makes me think of RID Scourge. Not, I know it's not the same transformation scheme. It's just wow, that's really interesting. Why don't we see that anywhere else kind of engineering? But just the way that RID Scourge's head, flips around on that armature and slides down. That's really cool, and we'd never see it anywhere else. The same deal with this guy, with the entire top part of the lion rotating up, the head's rotating up sideways, and then this all chunking down and locking everything together. That's cool. I'd love to see more of that, but oh well. But that is all I have to say about this guy. I'm kind of just rambling at this point. So what do you all think of Black Lio Convoy, whether it's this version or the original Legacy version, or both? Whatever your thoughts, feel free to chime in down below. I always enjoy hearing from you all. Thank you everybody for watching, and I'll see you in whatever the next video ends up being.